We've all been there, refreshing their profile for the 100th time, waiting for that perfect moment when they finally give us the closure we think we need. But here's what nobody tells you. Closure isn't something others give you. It's something you give yourself. Think about it. Have you ever actually felt better after getting answers from someone who hurt you? We convince ourselves that one perfect conversation will heal everything. But that's like expecting someone who couldn't meet your needs in a relationship to somehow perfectly meet your needs in ending it. Real closure happens when you accept a situation's outcome with a sense of peace, regardless of whether the other person participated in that process. It's about writing the final chapter yourself, instead of leaving the book perpetually unfinished. We waste so much energy waiting for permission to move on from someone who's already gone. It's like standing at a train station long after your train has departed, staring at the empty tracks. Today, we're going to explore exactly how to give yourself the closure you deserve, with practical steps that actually work. Because you don't need their permission to heal. You never did. Chapter 1. Emotional Intelligence in Endings. Ever notice how breakups feel physically painful? That's not just a metaphor. Your brain processes emotional pain in the same regions as physical pain. That's why we say our hearts are broken, because our bodies literally feel it. The first step to processing these emotions is simply naming them. We tend to lump everything under sad or angry, but there's a whole emotional color palette you're experiencing. Disappointment, rejection, embarrassment, relief, confusion. When you name the emotion, you create space between yourself and the feeling. It's no longer just happening to you, you're observing it. Think of it as the difference between being underwater and floating on the surface. Both involve water, but only one lets you breathe. We either suppress our emotions or get completely consumed by them. Neither approach actually processes anything. Processing is about acknowledging the emotion, understanding its message, and then letting it move through you rather than setting up permanent residence. Start with a simple practice called emotional mapping. Close your eyes and scan your body. Where do you physically feel the emotions related to this relationship? Your chest, stomach, throat? Now put your hand there and simply acknowledge, this is grief. This is disappointment. This is where I feel it. What we resist persists, but what we feel, we can heal. Chapter 2. The physical release of emotional pain. We store emotional pain in our bodies. Have you ever noticed how your shoulders tense up when you think about certain conversations? That's why healing needs to be physical, not just mental. Let's talk about creating a letting go box, one of the most powerful physical rituals for release. Find a box and gather the physical reminders of the relationship. The concert tickets, gifts, photos, even that t-shirt you've been sleeping in. Now here's where most people get it wrong. They either keep everything as shrine-like mementos, or they dramatically burn it all in some revenge fantasy bonfire. Neither actually helps with closure. Instead, hold each item, acknowledge the memory and emotion attached to it. Thank it for the role it played. Then place it in the box. You're not erasing history. You're just changing its location from your daily life to a contained space. Your environment shapes your thoughts. If you want new thoughts, you need a new environment. Rearrange your furniture, change your screensaver, take a different route to work. These aren't shallow distractions. They're physical pattern interrupts that create space for new neural pathways. Your body and environment aren't separate from your healing. They're essential tools for it. Chapter 3. Creating meaningful rituals. Humans need rituals to mark transitions. That's why we have graduations, weddings, and funerals. But somehow, we expect ourselves to navigate the end of significant relationships without any formal acknowledgement. That's like expecting a book to feel complete without the final chapter. Creating your own closure ritual isn't some woo-woo practice. It's neuroscience. Your brain needs symbolic experiences to process emotional transitions. Let me share 3 simple but powerful rituals you can adapt. First, the threshold ritual. Find a physical threshold, a doorway, a bridge, even a line drawn in sand. Stand on one side and speak out loud what you're leaving behind. Then physically cross over while stating what you're moving toward. Second, elemental rituals. Write what you're releasing on paper and safely burn it. or speak your feelings to running water in a stream. The symbolism creates powerful neural connections. Third, the empty chair technique. Place an empty chair across from you and imagine the person sitting there. Say everything you never got to say, not with anger, but with honesty. Then switch chairs and respond with what you need to hear, not what they would actually say. We keep waiting for perfect movie scene conversations that rarely happen in real life. This gives you that experience internally, where real closure actually occurs. Remember, the most powerful rituals feel personally meaningful to you. There's no right way, only what resonates with your experience. Chapter 4. Practicing Radical Self-Compassion. After a relationship ends, most of us become our own worst critics. We replay conversations with perfect hindsight, torture ourselves with if-only scenarios, and generally treat ourselves with a harshness we would never inflict on a friend. It's almost funny how we'll analyze text messages with the intensity of FBI agents looking for clues we missed. But all this self-criticism doesn't actually help us heal or learn. It just keeps us stuck in cycles of shame and regret. The antidote is radical self-compassion. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is about bubble baths and chocolate, it's not. Self-compassion is the psychological strength to face difficult truths about yourself without collapsing into shame. Try this. Think about something you regret from the relationship. Now imagine your closest friend came to you with the exact same situation. What would you say to them? I guarantee it wouldn't be the harsh criticism you're giving yourself. This isn't about letting yourself off the hook. It's about creating an internal environment where growth is actually possible. Plants don't grow when constantly uprooted to check their progress. Neither do people. Start practicing a self-compassion pause whenever you notice self-criticism. Place a hand on your heart, take a breath, and say, "This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of being human. May I be kind to myself in this moment." The relationship may have ended, but your relationship with yourself continues. Make it a good one. Learn something new? Hit that like button, share it with others, tap subscribe, and stick around for more. Got thoughts? I'd love to hear them in the comments. Chapter 5. The Art of Real Forgiveness. Let's talk about forgiveness, possibly the most misunderstood aspect of finding closure. Many of us think forgiveness means excusing bad behavior, pretending it didn't hurt, or reconciling with someone who harmed us. It's none of those things. Real forgiveness is about emotional freedom, yours. They're out living their life while you're still carrying their baggage. How is that fair to you? Forgiveness isn't a single decision. It's a practice. You don't just decide I forgive them and suddenly feel lighter. You practice releasing your grip on the hurt, over and over, until your hands learn a new position. The forgiveness letter technique is particularly powerful. You write 3 letters, but send none of them. First, write everything you're angry about. Second, write what sadness and hurt lies beneath that anger. Finally, write from a place of release, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. The most overlooked aspect of closure is self-forgiveness. We're often harder on ourselves than on anyone else. But consider this. You made the best decisions you could with the awareness, healing, and information you had at the time. Period. Berating yourself for not knowing then what you know now is like getting angry at yourself for not predicting the weather a year ago. It's an impossible standard no one can meet. True closure isn't the absence of memory. It's the presence of peace alongside those memories. Chapter 6. Navigating your social landscape. One of the hardest parts of finding closure is managing your social world after a relationship ends. Suddenly, your Instagram feed feels like a minefield. Mutual friends become complicated. Even certain locations feel loaded with memories. You need what I call a social closure strategy, with 3 key elements: boundaries, support, and gradual re-engagement. First, boundaries. It's completely reasonable to temporarily unfollow someone on social media without the drama of blocking or unfriending them. You're not being petty. You're creating necessary space for your nervous system to regulate without constant triggering. Second, be explicit about the support you need. Actually tell friends, I need distraction today, not discussions about what went wrong. Or, I need to process, not problem solve. Having a designated closure buddy can be incredibly powerful. Someone who witnesses your process without judgment and helps you stay accountable to your healing rather than your habits. Third, gradual re-engagement. You don't have to immediately handle every social situation perfectly. It's okay to decline events where you know they'll be present. It's okay to leave early. It's okay to bring support. Your social world will recalibrate. New connections will form. But rushing this process only creates more pain. Give yourself permission to move at a pace that feels healing rather than harmful. Chapter 7. Rewriting your personal narrative. Every relationship becomes a story we tell ourselves about ourselves. After it ends, that narrative often becomes distorted. I'm unlovable. I always choose wrong. Relationships never work for me. The first step is simply noticing the story you're currently telling. What's the one-sentence summary you've created about what this relationship meant? Is it I wasted years on someone who didn't value me? Or I failed at making this work? Now ask yourself, is this the only possible interpretation? Is it even accurate? What if the same events could tell a story of courage, growth, or learning instead? Try the $2 summary exercise. Distill what you learned from the relationship into just a few sentences, as if you only had limited words available. This forces you to focus on the essential meaning rather than every painful detail. Creating a wisdom-gained document can be transformative. List everything you learned without attaching it to blame or victimhood. You're not minimizing harm, you're extracting value from experience, which is the essence of wisdom. When you shift from what happened to me to what happened for me, everything changes. It's the difference between being defined by your past and being developed by it. Chapter 8. Future Visioning with Purpose. Finding closure isn't just about processing the past, it's about creating space for a meaningful future. Yet many of us get stuck because we haven't actually envisioned what comes next. Think about all the energy, emotional, mental, physical, that was going into that relationship. Where will you redirect that energy now? What has been waiting for your attention? Creating a personal closure timeline with specific milestones gives your healing process structure. It might include 1 month, start that pottery class I've been curious about. 3 months, plan a weekend trip with friends. 6 months, revisit my 5-year vision. These aren't arbitrary deadlines for getting over it. They're intentional markers that help you measure movement rather than stagnation. Writing letters to your future self can be extraordinarily powerful. From your current healing state, write to yourself 6 months from now. What have you learned that you don't want future you to forget? What strengths have you discovered that you want to carry forward? The relationship ending has created space, physical, emotional, temporal space. The question becomes, what will you grow in that space? Because nature abhors a vacuum, and without intentional planting, weeds of regret and rumination will grow instead. You get to choose what this chapter meant in your larger life story. You get to decide what happens next. That's not just closure, that's reclaiming your authorship. Chapter 9. Integration and continuous growth. True closure isn't a finish line you cross once. It's an ongoing integration process. The relationship becomes part of your story, without defining your entire identity. How do you know when this integration is happening? Here are the signs. You go days without thinking about them. The emotional charge lessens when memories arise. You can acknowledge both the good and difficult aspects without being overwhelmed. You feel genuine well wishes for them, not because you want them back, but because you've released the emotional grip. It's almost funny how we expect ourselves to achieve perfect closure overnight, when we'd never expect to master any other complex skill that quickly. We give ourselves more grace, learning to play guitar than learning to heal a broken heart. The taking the temperature practice helps maintain awareness, without judgment. Simply check in with yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how present is this past relationship in my thoughts today? How much emotional energy is it consuming? Relationship patterns only repeat when we haven't extracted their lessons. Once truly learned, you're free to create new patterns. That's why closure isn't just about ending one chapter. It's about writing a better next chapter. The ultimate sign of closure isn't forgetting what happened. It's being able to hold the experience as part of your life's rich tapestry without it restricting your capacity for joy, trust, and new connections. That's not just how you find closure. That's how you find yourself again. Perhaps even a wiser, more compassionate version than before. And that's the greatest gift that can come from endings when we approach them with presence and purpose.